on the tripod?
I'm not sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
It'll come back up once I get this going over to YouTube.
On the tripod? Yeah.
It'll come back up
We
once I
vote for
get
this, help board, or, done. That'll be by ballot, right?
Okay, we're ready to get started.
Okay. Here.
Can you hear us, Joe?
I can now. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know who covered me on the pledge, but thank you very much for doing that.
Commissioner Conley covered you.
Timely.
I can now. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
I don't know who covered me on the pledge, but thank you very much.
Is there any, that's feedback.
Yeah.
I'm gonna loop.
Where's all that coming
Somebody just replaying.
Should we start?
Loop. Loop.
Hello?
This is Chinese software. What do you expect?
I think it's the operator, which is me.
Yeah, remember I said you have to close that YouTube right out.
So it's still live
Okay,
streaming.
can we continue or
I don't know.
Jody said she wasn't live streaming.
Joe won't be able to hear?
Losing. She's not done texting me real quick. Oh, she said she's.
You get overtime, Eric? You get overtime?
I get lots of overtime.
If only you got paid for it though, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so
You'll
they-
need to. Okay. You got your,
Yeah.
Okay, we're all set? Okay, is there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the agenda?
I don't see any, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve the agenda for today.
Okay, have a motion by Commissioner Heberlin, supported by Commissioner Dean, that we adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there any corrections to the minutes? If not, anybody,
Approval of the minutes as presented.
Support.
motion by Commissioner Dean, supported by Commissioner Heberlin, that we approve the minutes of September the 15th, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Chair.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I believe there's a method in which we can go back to an addition to the agenda. Is that possible? So
I don't know.
if it happens while we're still here,
Well, at any point, you can suspend the rules
yeah.
by a majority vote of the board to modify the agenda.
Well, I have something I'd like to either add to the agenda or I can do it during a committee report. Are we amenable to having during a committee
Or
report
during-
a discussion?
Even during your commissioner report.
Yeah, commissioner or committee, either way.
Okay, why don't we go
We can have a discussion. You're not going to limit me to 3 minutes or 5 or 10 or whatever.
Commissioner
Sure.
reports aren't limited.
Okay,
No.
so we can have discussion during that time.
Mhm.
Very well, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Did we approve them?
No,
You got a motion?
Okay.
Second by Nita. Oh,
it's not.
All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, the same? Motion carried.
Yeah.
Correspondence, petitions, and introductions. That's your blue sheet. If you need anything from there, you can talk to Jody and she'll get you a copy. Commissioners report. Commissioner Dean?
Yeah, I attended the Community Mental Health Board of Directors meeting last week, and a lot of their activities are starting to resume. There are some in-person activities that haven't yet. But statistically, throughout the whole period of time this year so far, they've been able to maintain their contacts with their clients to a very large degree. A lot of it has been remotely or over the phone even. But they have been able to sustain their contacts with the people who utilize those services to a very efficient degree. And we're pleased to see that. So I think as well as could be expected, due to the circumstances, Community Mental Health has done an outstanding job of maintaining the contacts with people who rely heavily on their services.
Commissioner Healy?
Yes. First of all, there's been a new format come out. Actually, we're told we're going to do it. The state has added assessors to oversee our township assessors. That's been pushed back very heavily by my district, most of my district too. townships. And as you've seen, the commissioners, I think I copied them an email back to Mandy Wine, and it's not something she has any control over. And I think, Bob, you're going to talk about it a little bit later. So there is some pushbacks to that. In the last couple of weeks, I've attended 2 meetings, personnel meetings. And last week we reviewed, I'm going to take this off for a second. We reviewed upcoming vacant positions, and one is going to be in our meeting this afternoon, replacing our buildings and grounds supervisor, because looks like he's going to become a commissioner. And then today we met with our Sound Lake County treasurer on some things that she wanted to bring to the table. So, and a report.
Okay. Commissioner Wyatt?
Okay. One of the things I did was attend the Sound Lake Transportation Corporation's board meeting a couple of times that I haven't reported it. And they're really struggling with finding ridership. Ridership is, you're not dependent on the fare box. That is the money they collect from the individuals riding, so much as the monies that they derive from actually having people ride the bus from other funding sources. And there's just not a whole lot of people calling for their bus riding. They have a contract with CMH and with the ISD, but we all know that things are down in terms of that. The good news is, though, that the PACE Center just had the footings poured out there in Fort Gratiot. The PACE Center is Programs and Care for the Elderly, I believe is what the acronym stands for. And our representative, Christine Lee, who we appointed earlier in this year to represent us on that board, or to sit on that board, reported at the Brown City meeting that the footings were poured. They were moving forward with that. And that ties in with the Sound Lake Transportation Corporation, where they're working at finding a mechanism by which, not a mechanism, but some latitude in their funding stream and the parameters that they have to work within to be able to transport across those county lines, drop people off, and then bring them back. As it stands now, for the most part, they have to drop you off at the county line there. And then you got to sit in the rain out in a parking lot or whatever, waiting for blue water to come. And so they're working to try to come to some kind of understanding, particularly as it involves the PACE program, because this facility it's going to have a lot of programs. And you're talking about people that'll go there and spend the whole day there, maybe, for example. So that's what's going on there with those two organizations.
So, Joe, I served in that board. That was another thing we talked about, getting buses across county lines and to the. Does that look like that's going to happen, or?
They've got some wherewithal to be able to do so on special occasions where they can go for like a medical appointment or something small like that. I can't remember exactly the wording on it, but it's quite small and often it's infrequent at best. So I guess they're having some luck moving, but they've got to work with MDOT and their requirements, because each county has its own designated area and they don't want to have you infringing on the other area. And there's also the constraints they got to work with is not becoming a charter bus entity. Because while we were sitting there thinking of different things that they could think about in terms of gaining ridership, I'm coming up with all these dumb ideas, and most of them were competition for charter buses or taxis or what have you. Although the city of Croswell has need for a taxi since that company just went out of business. I guess they closed their door. Croswell Taxi did. So exactly what you were used to, Gary. They're still having the same issue, but I think this PACE program might be the impetus where they can, I don't know, talk some sense into MDOT.
That was silly
to have to transfer right there at the county line to go another 4 miles.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is Commissioner O'Meara, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any report?
Not a lot to report right now. I mean, I attended the Board of Health meetings last week, and I did some, just in regards to connectivity and the broadband committee's efforts to bring more internet. I actually Comcast got back to me with a specific marketing person, and I spoke to that person, and they will start rolling out. The big problem with them is is COVID, and they have to get into the houses and test the wires within each of the houses. But I'll share that information and that contact person's name and stuff with the committee. But he said that they're going to start at the end of this month. Additionally, I called my local libraries and just said, asked them if I could come in and use and sit down and use their internet with my computer. And we have 3 libraries: Croswell, Lexington, and Port Sanilac. 2 of them had no problem, and one of them will not allow the public to come in and just sit down and use the internet. And I couldn't get anywhere with the director of that library, but I reached out to some of the board members, and again, I didn't get any response from them either. But I see the libraries as a critical component of education and people staying connected. So it just hits on the point that all our libraries are well funded through our millage, but then each of them is an independent unit. We may want to rethink that structure so that we can get better service, and especially at a time like this. So that's my observation about that. Thank you.
Joe, I have some questions to ask you if you don't mind.
Sure.
Which library was that? I'm familiar with Croswell and Lexington because they're in my area. But which one refused you the opportunity?
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
Well, it's their policy. It's their policy, and they weren't really willing to budge on that. That would be Port Sanilac.
Yeah.
And they have their own separate board, which is comprised of people from Port Sanilac. So, Croswell and Lexington are fine. They're very, very accommodating, and they understand the importance of the need for people to come in and just use have a place to use the computer. Port Sanilac did say, well, we have a bench outside that you could use. And I'm like, well, that's not going to do. This is Michigan. And they also suggested just in the car. So.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, thank you. Myself,
You're welcome.
just kind of interesting, when I attended my last meeting with the Village of Peck, they had something on the agenda that the village people are kind of excited about. So they had tons of people coming in there. They said, well, we can only get 10 in here at a time. And their meeting place was right by the city park. So they went out in the park, we all sat underneath the pavilion and had a meeting. It was a good meeting, but I just thought that was cute. And then last night, I went to the city of Marlette and found out, I didn't know it until that night, but their mayor resigned.
Mm.
And
He's been there that long.
oh, he's been there 40 years,
Oh, okay.
40-some years.
I'm thinking they're city manager.
Yeah, city manager's a newer one, yeah. And so they elected they changed the mayor pro temp. They boosted him up to be the mayor. Then they'll have to have some elections and get that done. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about is the designated assessor. And I don't know if a lot of people understand how that is going to work, but Wendy Willing sent out on September the 4th, talking a little bit. She sent it to all of the people involved, the supervisors of the townships and so forth, that on October the 2nd at 9 a.m., we had a meeting right here. And she was going to discuss how things were going, how it works and things like that. But when we got here, there was 2 townships representative, myself and Wendy. was all that was here. And I wasn't really upset, but I was kind of worried that people do not understand what this designated assessor is. Because the first thing, there's 31 jurisdictions that would have to apply for this, or not apply, but this would apply to them. 31 jurisdictions in Sanilac County. And we have to have a majority vote, and supervisor or mayor or whoever has to sign their name that they are for a certain individual. And it was hard to do with just two people in there. So I suggested that, hey, we have an open meeting, and we got two people that reported on RFP. So we was going to interview them, and they did set a new date because we need this township, basically. We need their input, because if we don't get 16 out of that 31, we do not have a majority, then the state's going to appoint who they want. Now, who that would be, I don't know, but I assume it's going to be coming somebody out of Lansing. And so I encourage, you people on your districts, let them know what is at stake here. And if they can make that meeting on October the 14th at 6 o'clock.
6:30 it says, yeah. 6 o'clock for Mr. Hager, 6:30 for
Yeah.
Mr. Yeah.
Right, so on the 14th at 6 o'clock, we're gonna start our interviews with those two people, and then we're gonna see,
These are local people.
nope, that's the bad. One of them is a local person. He graduated from Marlat, and the other one is from Milan.
Yeah.
And that's the RFP that she got back.
Brazil.
We would kind of like to see somebody that's got a lot of agriculture experience. But as of now, I don't know if any of them are. We'll know more after we interview them.
Where's that meeting at, Bob?
It's at the Dawson Street. And so that's very important, because if I know Sanilac County, we would rather do our own than to have somebody from Lansing come in and do our
That
assessment.
assessor is gonna assess, township assessor.
No, that assessor is going to be in Bay, so to speak. And the assessors that each township has now, if AMWAR comes in and says they're not doing what they should be, they rated low or whatever, then this designated assessor is going to take over. Okay, and get
So the
it.
state's getting their hands in more control of everything.
But it would take a pretty serious defect in what they're doing locally.
Well, they got it.
So,
They got it in here, what they look for and stuff. But, yeah, I don't know if that's another step that the state's trying to take or not. I don't want to get involved in that. But I do know that percentage, you talked to Wendy Willing, the percentages of the assessors, most of them pass their AMWAR inspections. So then this wouldn't apply to them at all. But most of these designated assessors, they want a retainer fee. And that's going to be divided up between the 31 jurisdictions. The county's not going to be involved in that at all. But it is important that you let the townships and cities, villages in your area know the importance of this. Because if they, like the ones that was here, they didn't really realize it yet. They came, the two that came, they didn't realize that if we don't get a majority, state's going to send people in. So we need to get that out to the people. So if each supervisor, I'm still back in my supervisory, if each commissioner would notify their jurisdiction, just send them an email. And I think I sent you a letter from Wendy or something.
I assume Wendy is sending out a letter directly to the townships herself.
Wendy-
Well, probably.
Wendy-
That's what I was,
Wendy did it. That's the one I sent you people, I think. She sent it out. And Scott, she receives 2 bids. And when it's gonna be October the 14th, starting at 6 o'clock at the Dawson Street building. So that'll be some good information, but I wanted to make sure that you guys also contact your jurisdictions, because the more that they hear that, that way they might want questions, they can contact you. But it is a very important thing that we need to
so
do.
that's a very important meeting, October 14th at 6 PM.
Yep,
I need to be there. Okay.
yep, it is a very important meeting,
And that's at Dawson Street?
Dawson Street.
This was a subject 2 years ago that I brought up on the campaign trail, and I also brought up once or twice here in this boardroom. At that time, though, we didn't know that the county would not be on the hook for the payment of it, right? So but I brought that up with Wendy and had a couple of conversations with her in the last 2 years about that, because it was coming time where we had to start thinking about budgeting a position, but clearly that's not our responsibility, which I'm grateful for.
But when I see things like this going on, it brings back my memory, because I spent 30 years on Flint Township. And some of the people that they had doing the AMWAR thing had no experience, didn't know what they were doing. And so that made it difficult too. Just to give you an example on that, they wrote Flint Township, because that's where I'm from. She wrote, we had to send in a report of what we're doing, all this type of stuff, and I put it together and sent it in. She wrote it back, it's terrible, you gotta redo that. I changed one word and sent it back. And she wrote me a letter, that's the best thing I've ever seen. You know? And
That must have been a key word, did she?
Yeah.
it must have been something. But, you know, everybody was having problems with her. So they moved her. She is not in the, she still works for the state, but she does not do the assessing part of it.
Bob, if I may, when I first got elected, I went to that MAC sponsored, what would you call it, a seminar or something where they put on where new commissioners, right?
Orientation.
It was very useful. One of the seminar programs was from the treasurer, and they talked about this very subject. They spent probably an hour and a half talking about it. And one of the things they highlighted, though, because it caused quite a stir rather, was that there's multiple remediation steps that the assessor of that unit would have to correct a failed AMR. So it's not like they screw up one time and all of a sudden the county has to come in there and fix it. It's not, I mean, they have multiple steps of remediation to fix those failures. So like you said, you know, if they're doing a good job, but there's a couple of things, they'll be able to continue with that assessor of their choice.
Somewhat, yeah. They'll give you time to try to
Yes,
correct it.
yeah.
Yeah.
She had a graph and a chart of the cycles of if they mess up here, they go back to, it was like Candyland. You go back to step one, and then you screw up, you go back again, and then eventually the county designated assessor comes in and takes over. She says, but we hope it doesn't get to be that way, but that's our solution. And it makes sense. The state's got a vested interest in properly assessing units, right?
If they know what they're doing, yeah.
Yeah, but
As long as they don't get too far reaching.
Yeah. Well, there's different things, you know, you got agriculture is big around here in Sanilac County. A lot of them never seen that, you know, so that's different too. Okay, we got to get going. I see Dan's watching the clock.
No, I'm.
But please notify your jurisdiction and see what's going on. Administrative report.
Okay, I'll just mention over the past 4 Tuesdays, we've been meeting with our budget committee to review our budget. And I will say I'm quite pleased to see that a lot of our planning is focusing more on obtaining some long-term goals and becoming more sustainable so that we can, you know, provide for future generations. I think that's always good. I know it seems like year after year, we always have our expenses grow faster than our revenues. So that is typical that we battle that each year. But I think over the past 4 weeks, we've made a lot of ground, if you will. We've covered a lot of ground. We probably still have a little ways to go, but we did talk about implementing a steering committee that could help drive us towards that strategic planning, setting those goals and determining what we want to focus on as we move into future budget planning years. So that's good news. And then just to mention really quickly, we had a meeting last week with Gibson. If you recall, they're our health insurance agent. So focusing again on that long-term planning, we discussed potential areas where we could improve our employee health and then also continue to lower the county cost of healthcare, the employer share of healthcare. So once we develop the steering committee and have the proper groups represented at the table, we will also pick up on pursuing talks with Gibson to see what else we can work into our planning for next year's open enrollment, which typically is in July. Other than that, it's pretty much just been focused on the budget. We do have some grants that came in with regard to the CARES Act funding, and then there was some Michigan State Police funding that we did receive notification on those awards. A lot of that money is going to be going towards computer equipment. That was for the sheriff's office, the prosecutor's office, and then the courts. And then in addition, I believe we're going to try to write for 2 separate USDA grants for other equipment needs. Part of that is for probate court. I believe I mentioned this before. And then another part would be for equipment for the remaining courthouse departments. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Public comments, agenda items only. Yeah. None. Presentation of cost allocation plan.
Hi, everyone. This is Gordon Stryker, and I've got Dawn Bach along with me here.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Appreciate you allowing us to do this presentation via Zoom, and hopefully it'll go well. So what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about cost allocation plans and why we do them for you every year and why you need to have one done. And certainly we'll open it up to questions if you have any. But I guess what I'd like to do is get started off by talking to you. I was there in January, I think, and we were delivering the 2018 cost allocation plan back then. This is the 2019 cost allocation plan. Cost plans are always done retroactively. So we do the 19 cost plan in 2020, and you start using the number in 2021. The cost plans, the reason why that is because we have to work from audited financials. So your 2019 audit is usually completed around June. And once the audit's done, then we come in and we get the data that we need to prepare the cost allocation plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to share my screen so you can see the cost plan, because I don't know whether or not you folks have a copy of it there or not, but let's see if this works. Okay. Does everyone see the cost plan that says Sanilac County?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. So this is the cost plan. What we do is we prepare the cost plan for your county every year. The reason why you do a cost plan is to identify all of the indirect costs that the county spends, usually through the general fund, to support all of the other departments in the county. The reason why you do it is so that we can identify the indirect costs for programs that you are administering, like the Child Support Enforcement Program, which is a federally mandated program. But with the federal mandate comes some incentives in that they pay you back 66% of every dollar that you spend administering that program. That's for direct expenditures and indirect expenditures. And in order for you to get the indirect expenditures, you've got to have a cost plan. And the cost plan has to be prepared to the requirements of the federal regulations, which is 2 CFR Part 200. So I'm just going to go through this really quick. And then open it up for questions. I think that I've done this presentation to you folks before, so hopefully I'm not going to bore you too much, but so the cost plan here, your particular cost plan is 183 pages long, and it's got a lot of detailed information in it, which is great for nerds like me. And it's not so great for people that are high-level people like yourselves. But you've got finance people that like this kind of detail also. So cost plan has a lot of different parts. One of them is a certification page, and we usually get the finance person or the county administrator or the board chair to sign and certify it. Basically, you're just saying that all the costs that we used in the cost plan were your actual costs from 2019. And you can be assured that they are, because we get all of that information directly from your audit and from your general ledger that's been closed out. There's an organizational chart that details everything about how the organization, your county, is set up. We've got the commissioners, the administration and controller. All of the green ones, all the green departments are elected officials, and then all of the departments that are underneath everybody. There's a couple of pages here that talk about how to read the cost allocation plan, which is kind of helpful, but if hopefully I can answer all the questions that you're going to have pretty quickly. And then the next section talks about is the table of contents. It shows you the page number in the cost plan, where everything is. It talks about the central service departments, and then what the allocation basis is that we use to distribute the costs. So basically, it's a process where you look at the departments that are the central service departments, and you look at their expenditures, and then you allocate those expenditures out over to all of the receiving departments based on some sort of a allocation statistic that allocates it out equitably. So for building depreciation, and it's the square foot size of the building that each one of the departments has within your county buildings. You've got the county courthouse, the county annex, the 171 Dawson and 95 Dawson. These are, again, central service departments. You've got, this is the summary schedule. This is the schedule that usually all of the departments use to find out what their indirect costs are. Down the left-hand column here is the this is the area are the actual central service departments, and then across the top are all of the receiving departments. And then what you need to do is think of it as a great big long spreadsheet with all of the departments and all the funds in the county that are actually receiving allocations. So the way it works is you've got central service department, building depreciation. This is the amount of depreciation for each one of the buildings. And then you've got the clerk's office. And there is $3,783 worth of building depreciation that's allocated to the clerk. And then down at the bottom, so you've got equipment depreciation, Board of Commissioners, treasurer, central purchasing, data processing, mail, sick and vacation pay, retiree health. All of those are expenditures that have been allocated to the clerk. So the total amount of indirect costs for 2019 for the clerk's office was $120,000. So if we look at the building depreciation as the first example here for the clerk, and it's $3,783. For each one of the central service departments, there is a detail and a narrative for it. for building depreciation, it starts on page 15. It talks about the different departments, talks about the depreciation, and then you've got the departmental costs, either actual costs that are from your fixed asset list, fixed asset report. And there was a total of $125,000 in depreciation costs. We've split those costs out between the courthouse annex, the Dawson, and the 2 Dawson buildings. That's the dollar amount that we're allocating out. You've got each one of those functions. You've got here, like this is the courthouse costs, and there was $36,000. These are the departments here that are actually in the courthouse. This is the square feet here. There's 18,000 square feet in the courthouse. These are the departments and the square feet that's allocated to it. The clerk's office here has 1,900 square feet. That's about 10% of the total for the courthouse. And that is 10% of the $36,000 is $373.83. And that should have been the number that we were looking for. Yep, 3,783. So that's the way that the cost allocation plan works. There's this is the high level here. For each one of these numbers, there's a detail, and you just go to the central service department and look at the central service department within here, and you can get back to the summary detail. So at this point, I can open it up to questions.
I don't have any. I don't think we have any questions.
Really? That's wonderful.
I guess the key question I have, Mr. Strager, here is cost allocation has been a source of contention here for a number of years, maybe a little more so this past year.
Okay.
To the point that a couple of the millage funds, agencies that we gave invoices to went and obtained legal opinions that claimed that they were under no obligation to pay us the cost allocation assessment that we had asked for. I don't know if you've had a chance to see those legal opinions, or we could forward them to you, but have you encountered this elsewhere? And what legal basis are you confident we have to collect these amounts from these millage funds?
First of all, I typically get this from, like you said, millage funds, or one of the other ones is the building department. I get the building department asks this question a lot because there's a informational letter that they have that they sort of bring around, and they say that you can't assess clerk costs clerk cost to the building department. And there's a misinterpretation or misinformation in that yes, the clerk has a lot of general government functions that they do in the counties. And this does not apply to your county, because payroll in your county is not done by the clerk's office, but it is done in most of the other counties. And so what we're doing is we're just allocating the payroll cost, which is a central service function. The clerk doesn't have to do payroll. It could be like you folks do, and you have it in your administrator's office. And so then you can claim it. So that's one of the areas. The other one is that for millage funds is that we actually have a letter from the state treasurer that says that unless the language of the millage specifically precludes collecting indirect costs, then yes, you should be able to collect indirect costs from those millage funds. And I can certainly share that letter with you if you'd like to see it.
I'd like to see.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, definitely like to see the letter.
Tara, I don't know if you could share with Mr. Schrecker the legal opinions that were forwarded us from those two departments, but I guess, that's kind of put a cloud over the whole effort here on cost allocation, and was this uncertainty on whether we had the legal authority to actually collect those assessments. And so I guess we need to have clarification of that.
I will email the letter to Tara and then she can distribute it out to everyone, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Well,
Actually,
there's an easy solution. If there's no legal connection, then we don't have to provide the service. Let them do it on their own.
that is a correct statement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any more questions either side?
I was just looking to see if I have the state of Michigan letter here. And I do. Let me just share this with you real quick if you want me to. And then I will email it to Tara also. So this is the letter that we received. Actually, we got it back in 2012. And it does talk about the fact that if you have indirect costs and you're distributing them through a cost allocation plan, then you can use them unless through a tax levy is not restricting. So as long as the tax levy is not restricting the indirect costs, then you should be able to claim the cost. So I'll get this over to Tara, and then you folks can review it further if you have any questions.
We actually already have that letter, Gordy.
Okay,
I didn't know if there was a different one, but we have shared that with the different departments and the villages that we've worked with. So we do have that information.
okay, and they're still giving you a problem?
Well,
Tara, can you summarize the legal basis that the legal opinions gave for them not having to pay? Or maybe, I hate to put you on the spot here, but maybe you can just share that.
I'd rather have those legal opinions in front of me, but it was
Okay.
basically stating that they didn't have to pay and we couldn't enforce them to pay.
Now, but if they were to include in their millage language a prohibition against paying indirect cost, wouldn't that seriously tie their hands on a lot of other expenditures that they would try to make with their millage funds?
That's if they got us to approve the language of the millage.
Correct.
Yeah,
But I'm not trying to get too far out in theoretical land here, but again, we were confronted with those legal opinions. I just needed clarification that we are on solid footing with what we're doing here.
So what are you saying? They can just keep stalling on this? Is that calculated into our budget discussion?
Well, we have to make a decision on how to proceed, but I think the first step is to just have verification that we have legal authority to collect those assessments.
Well, outside of us spending money to do so, we've got letters from the treasurer or the Department of Treasury. Do we want to spend money to?
I think we've already obtained the services of Mr. Stryker. I'd like to have him maybe evaluate those legal opinions that we received and give us an opinion on his reaction to those.
Well, I'm getting from Tara that they're just opinions and they don't have to listen to them. So we'll plan after that. We'll plan after that.
But he's the expert on this, and he's dealt with this issue. And again, I'm sure we're not the only place in the state of Michigan where there's controversy around cost allocation. It is a contentious issue around here. But I guess I think we need to clear up our legal authority to do what we're doing. And I think he's best suited to maybe give us some advice on that once he sees those legal opinions.
okay, any other questions?
The only question I had for Dan, that includes not doing their cost, that they do their own work and we don't collect it off.
Yeah, but some of these are small millage funds that we provide, minimal support to, and their allocation or assessment's quite small too, but there would still be other issues as far as assessing things like depreciation and things, but I think we may want to look at formulating a consistent policy on how to address cost allocation in the future.
Well, at the very least, remember for future boards purposes that that language comes up for reevaluation to be put out to the voters again. It has to have our blessing on it.
Correct, but that would be a severe step to take to hold that over their head. But I think that the first step here needs to be us verifying that we have the legal authority to do what we're doing, contrary to what those legal opinions might be saying.
Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation, and we'll probably be hearing back and forth.
All right. The only other thing that we, like I said, that we're going to need at some point is to have the certification signed. And then what we will do is we will go ahead and finalize the cost plan at that point and submit it to the state. And we have to do that before November 30th. But we certainly would like to get it there as quickly as possible because we have a lot of counties that are, calendar year counties. And so all their cost plans are coming up very quickly. But we'd like to get it done as quickly as possible and get it submitted to the state. And then what we will do is we will start using the number in the 819 cost plan with your 2021 billings that we prepare for you so that you can get reimbursed for the friend of the court and the prosecuting attorney costs.
Okay.
Do you have a hard copy of the total report?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can.
Mainly just the page. How do the numbers compare to last year as far as the various?
I think some of the costs have increased, but some have leveled out too. It kind of depends on either the departments, the number of transactions that they had during the year.
And if we're talking about billings going out, I think the board should review that before any bills go out.
Definitely.
Yeah, we can do that. We can put that on the finance agenda for the 20th.
When's that due to you?
That's in November.
10th, okay.
Gordy, if I'm correct, the certification is just verifying that you utilize figures from our general ledger in our 2019 audit, correct? So we could go ahead and get that certification out so they could get that report to the state if
Yep.
the board's comfortable with that. Shouldn't hold up our.
Yeah, the certification has nothing to do with how you actually use the plan. It's only certifying that the numbers that we used were from your audit and from your general ledger, your 2019 final general ledger.
Gordy, do you believe that the way we utilize cost allocation is typical of counties around the state, or?
The reason every county does a cost allocation plan is so that they can get the reimbursement for the federal programs, the child support and child care program. So every county is using the plan and has the plan done because of that. I think that counties have become very systematic and figuring out how else to use the cost plan now that they've got the document. But for several years, the counties never even looked at them because there were only two numbers that were ever used and out of the cost plan. And so no one ever looked at it. And we've gotten to a point where there are counties now that are feeling a pinch and are starting to use the cost allocation plan similar to what you're doing. And because it's something different something different to how your funds or your departments have done business in the past, they're questioning it. And so I typically get these questions from, like I said, the building departments. I also get them from special millages, EMS, things like that. I get the question from people from departments that are providing the services directly to the citizens, kind of like the senior citizens millages and veterans millages and library millages. And let me tell you that those individuals in those three categories are very vocal. So a lot of times the boards just sit down and talk with them and, as you said, work through it. And as I've told Tara that, it really is a matter of letting them know ahead of time how much that what the expectation is that they're going to be paying, and not just wait until the end of the year and say, well, now you owe us, $10,000 for supporting your office. Get it in the budget at the front end so that they know that it's there. And I think that's fair. And just say, listen, these are the services that we're providing to you in order for you to be able to do your job. And it's costing the county something to do that. And if you think you can get it done cheaper somewhere else, then I guess you should be able to, you should do that. You should have that opportunity. But yeah, you're going through the same thing that a lot of the counties are. It probably would be helpful if MAC would do a presentation, and so that county administrators and county commissioners have a leg on how to pursue and go after indirect and collect indirect costs. That might be helpful.
Thank you very much, Gordy.
I appreciate your time. Thank you. Stay well and stay safe.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye. Okay, go on down the line. We got some interviews for the health board. Is Dr. Michael Lewis, is he online?
It's possible he could be there. We have a couple individuals who called in, but they have to unmute their lines.
Nobody on?
Text it in, Dan. I'll text it over.
He was just asking, okay, let's go, if he's not online then.
He submitted a letter, so I guess that's it.
Okay. Kendra, do you wanna?
Up to the podium?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, I wrote basically everything I wanted you to know in my letter. I've been outside of the county, lived in Midland for a few years with my family, and we came back. It's Santa Ana County. All of you guys know there's nothing like it. When you come from a small town, you can move out, but you always miss a small town. So we've come back and we're raising our family here, and I just have the interest to be involved in the place that we're going to be raising our family and how generations are going to experience things coming up.
Okay.
Did anyone have any questions specifically, or?
You live in Sandusky or?
No, I currently live in Deckerville, but I will be moving very shortly to Palms. So
To where? To Palms?
Palms.
Oh, okay.
Yep. My husband and I just recently purchased a home there, and we'll be peeling wallpaper tonight and doing a few other things and then moving in. So, yep.
Kendra, maybe your academic background and your current occupation.
Yes, I went to Deckerville schools all my life, graduated from there, and I went up to college. I initially went to Central, and then I finished my degree, bachelor's in accounting from Northwood University, and came back here, and I work at Sandusky Community Schools and the business director there. So Tara and I probably see a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And my son currently, he still goes to Deckerville schools. I participated in several things there as well as several things at Sandusky. I have a good span of different the different cities and places in St. Lake County. My husband works for Eastern Michigan Bank, and he works at several of the branches within the county. So we don't usually stick around Sandusky, Deckerville, or one specific spot. We usually travel a lot and go to the splash pad in Croswell. We enjoy going there with our kids and yeah, like seeing everything it has to offer.
So is Commissioner Dean the teacher of your son?
No, he was my
I was a
teacher.
teacher.
Oh, yes, yes.
Let's
Yeah,
be
mine
honest, he was
and
probably your mom's teacher as well.
It wouldn't be impossible.
My parents were actually from Howell area, and my grandparents are from Lexington, so they moved us up here when we were all very young and kind of stayed. So no, he didn't have that experience, but he got all of my siblings and I.
Well, I must say, you're a remarkable young lady, and it's curious to me why you would ever want to be involved in a boring, stodgy old committee like that.
Well, I currently serve on the Health Advisory Council for Deckerville Community Hospital.
Okay.
My sister-in-law works there, and she had reached out because I have a young family within the county. They just wanted opinions, and that kind of sparked my interest and got me thinking. And then I ran across this and I said, you know, I'm interested in this. Why not give it a shot and pursue and learn? And I love learning. Stream can kind of adhere to that. I've always have. And I feel like if you're gonna be involved in things, you should get educated about them first. So, does anyone else have anything they'd like to know?
Have you enjoyed any of our parks, our county parks here?
Oh, I love them all. I've been helping Aaron Carlson and George Lasecki here with the George Hop Memorial Park, paying the bills and all of that, getting the purchase orders and stuff done with that. So I haven't yet had a chance to visit that, but I will hopefully soon. During COVID, that splash pad, and
Yeah.
I and my kids, we enjoyed that a lot. I have a 10-month-old. So it's a lot of fun to be able to send my 7-year-old and 3-year-old to play in the splash pad while we sit back and watch. And I like the Croswell one. I steer away from the swinging bridge over there with my little ones. Can't quite take that, but I do love the splash pad over there. So I'm looking forward. I have heard that there may be more coming to the county.
That's
Splash pads,
Yeah.
so
There's no more questions, so thank you very
Thank you.
much.
you're very welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay. Are we gonna do what Joe was sending him?
He sent a text with his vote. I don't know where
Okay.
I have it here.
Oh, okay.
I guess I'll let you just.
I think we have to have a motion to take the names of nomination here.
Sport.
I hadn't made the motion yet, but I'll make it. I would move that we place the names of Dr. Michael Lewis and Kendra Messing in the nomination for the position on the health board.
Okay, motion been made by Commissioner Dean, seconded by Commissioner Wyatt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same.
With the vote?
Did he say nay?
Actually, I made roll call vote, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that one, okay.
Okay. Commissioner Dean,
Yes.
Commissioner Hebel,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Meara,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt.
Repeat the question, please.
This is to close
The
nomination.
motion.
A motion to close nomination.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And Chairman Coleman.
Yes.
The secret ballot.
Huh? You said flip it over.
We will be appointing one for a 5-year term expiring 4/15/2022.
Okay, the vote tally is 4 votes for Kendra Messing, 1 for Dr. Lewis.
Congratulations,
Thank you
Kendra.
very much.
Okay. Appointments to boards and committees, non-county commission appoints. Committee reports, I don't have any unfinished business.
Committee reports.
Oh,
Okay, so
okay,
this EOC, LEPC committee that's been meeting
yep,
3 times a week. The Monday and the Friday meeting involves the different hospital representatives. Typically, they're the CEOs of the hospital. Also, the community mental health and some other people. I think ISD is now in our Wednesday meeting. So really what is important, we're all aware of what happened on Friday with the Michigan Supreme Court ruling that the executive orders after that April 30th date were null and void. So this is what's been discussed, and mostly this is going to be my impression of what's happened in our committee meetings. All the authority that was derived from those executive orders that the Supreme Court ruled on is null and void, whether it's through the Health and Human Services or a local jurisdiction or what have you. If they utilize those executive orders as the basis for their authority or their protocol, it's null and void. So there was a period of time from Friday, and I'm sure we're all well aware, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, that people didn't know what we were going to do. And there was a discussion for a period of time that we were just going to continue enforcing those executive orders, which would have been unlawful, and it would have been against the Constitution of the state of Michigan. And so as commissioners, I felt it was important that we stand up for the liberty of the citizenry. And since the Supreme Court recognized that liberty was walked over by failing to include the state legislature in those executive orders, that it was necessary for us to do something. And that something would originate from our health director, who's charged with the responsibility for Sanilac County at identifying health risks and taking action according to he sees fit. But so there was some concern about whether we were acting on his authority as the sole authority with jurisdiction, as it were, or whether we were acting on outdated executive orders that were found to be inconsistent with Michigan law. There was a whole 21-day debacle, which to this moment, nobody knows what the real deal is on that, because the Supreme Court's been silent up until, this very moment on that. Nevertheless,
On the 21 days.
yes, even MAC, the Michigan Association of Counties, had an opinion that the 21 days were something that was legitimate. But it's unlikely that that was the case, given that the Attorney General indicated she would no longer be enforcing any of those executive orders. So that was probably evidence that there was no 21 days. Nevertheless, it's a moot point now, because the Act 368 of 1978 empowers the Department of Health and Human Services Director to identify an epidemic and use resources to prevent, I forget the language exactly, I could read it to you, but require mask wearing or other protective measures that are necessary to control that. There's some issues with the language that one could be, persnickety about, I suppose. I did speak with a lawyer today about those issues. Again, it's a gray area that allows enough latitude for the director to be able to move and operate within his authority. But the end result is that the requirement for mask wearing, social distancing, and reduced congregation is in effect and has the full authority of law through the Health and Human Services Director. And that's on Michigan compiled law. So
When and how was that put into effect? that the health director did this?
That came out yesterday.
Okay.
I think was the email we got. So I looked up that statute. I mean, for whatever difference it is for me, I mean, but I felt it was reasonable to look it up, and it seems like that's the real deal, you know? And like I
So
said,
who did that go out to besides municipalities? That go out to schools?
that's actually been on the
Churches.
news. That's been distributed to all the news outlets. It's both on social media and on the broadcasters. I'm sure the printed papers are working that into it as well. Let's see, the governor was on the news this morning talking about the fact that that was what she had the director do to carry on with her executive orders. But let's be clear, these are not executive orders. These are emergency orders. And it's not, although the reality is we know they mirror her executive orders and they were pushed forward through her office, of course. Nevertheless, it's a completely different line of authority, separate unto itself and not associated necessarily with the executive orders, not relying on the strength of the executive order. So that makes it legitimate, it appears to be. I did get some clarification from Director Bryant Wilkie today regarding things such as us being in a building such as this, if we can maintain 6 feet of social distancing. And we're not concerned about where our paths will cross. It's not necessary to wear the masks, although you're free to do so. Our own policy in the county building itself should be modified in such a way that it doesn't reference we talked about the fact that we need to have a emergency response plan that reflects not specifically the COVID-19, but rather any kind of epidemic emergency. And it should probably list as the line of authority extending, for example, from executive orders or orders from the Department of Health and Human Services Director as outlined in state law. As we move forward, if something like this inevitably happens again in 3 years, we're not looking at a outdated plan of COVID-19, but we're looking at the county's emergency action plan relating to an identified epidemic.
So who enforces this?
Well, right now, his order calls for law enforcement agencies to execute enforcement in a normal manner, as well as local health department agencies to enforce it in the same manner. And in fact, his public pronunciation outlines the penalties, the civil fines that are associated with it. So you can certainly expect that they mean business on it, because we all know that up until last week, several municipalities were issued fines. Port Huron was one of them. There were several other businesses last week that had fines levied against them, although in those cases, that's no longer the case because they're null and void, of course. But you can be rest assured that they'll be moving forward with those places, watching them and issuing fines as we go forward.
But most sheriff department, police, not sheriff department, most city police departments have already said in the first one, they're not going to enforce this. They don't have the time to do that.
Well, we went through that with the Second Amendment resolution, right? You know, the urging that we would ask our law enforcement agencies who are charged with enforcing the law, that they would use the discretion that they have at their station to be able to choose to do one thing or another, as it were. They have consequences of those actions as well, or those inactions.
But the AG isn't enforcing though, correct?
The AG probably will enforce it now, right, through the health department enforcing it. I'm not sure how that works out. It doesn't seem like she's directly involved as she was with the executive orders, but you can rest assured there's a line of enforcement. There's teeth behind this for sure. And at this point, the legislature has been, well, we haven't heard anything about it from the legislature in the last day or so regarding this new DHHS order.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But it's worth noting, it was an interesting conversation I had with our state rep, which was, listen, now that we no longer, this is the time period from last Friday until yesterday morning. now that we no longer have the big bad state to point to for lack of clarification and forcing us to wear this masks, what are we going to do as a community to either protect the citizenry or just say this is a bunch of bunk and throw off the shackles, as it were? And a lot of municipalities don't want to take that responsibility because there's consequences to making those decisions. It's one of the reasons why Director Wilkie and I had a long conversation that in light of the fact that the state's actions were no longer valid at that point, we needed to make a decision in Sanilac County through the health director. What are our plans to move forward? Do we simply say that, hey, everything's open and nobody has to do anything? Or are we concerned about this being an issue? And do we carry out actions that force compliance with a requirement that you identify through the health department? But then it got taken up at a state level and removed that sense of responsibility from our shoulders.
So there was nothing mentioned about the longevity of this one.
Well,
6 weeks.
he extended this till April 30th or 20th or I'm sorry, October, either 20th or 30th, probably the 30th.
This October.
Yeah, this October, yeah. So it sure is similar to the extension of the emergency order that the governor enacted. However, it's not from the governor, right? It's from her.
Well, we've already seen it happen in Port Huron, right? It's been on the news.
The Supreme Court very clearly indicated
Work together.
they're hoping the legislature and the governor get together and get a coordinated plan here. And I think you will see something in that direction, but I think everybody's kind of in a state of limbo right now. I think in the next week or so, you're going to see some direction coming from some direction, somewhere here. And hopefully the legislative leaders and the governor can sit down and put their heads together.
Well, Dan, since we're here talking about it, we might as well go a little deeper. It brings to mind in my eyes the failure on the part of local municipalities to have an action plan ready to go and implement. We've known about this lawsuit, right? This suit that was the Supreme Court was deliberating on for a long time, and it never occurred to us that it might be successful and overturned. And what do we do in the interim? And while it was only 3 days before the Department of Health and Human Services director stepped in and made a decision that took that responsibility out of our ball court, we should have had a plan to enact immediately. And I can say that the meetings that we've had for the last 4 months, I don't recall us ever really considering that.
I think everybody was caught off guard here.
We shouldn't have. That was the whole purpose of the meeting, and
Well, the meetings were to try to protect the citizenry.
That's totally not true, Joel. In April, I said to all you guys, in the event that the executive orders go away and we have a problem, the health director has the authority. And should we address this? And Dan looked at me and said, no, we shouldn't. So here we are.
And that's what I just said. We did not address it. And that shouldn't happen.
It was addressed. It was addressed and
Where's
we
the
didn't
plan?
take any action.
Where's the plan? That's what I'm talking about. Where's the
We
plan?
didn't take any action.
There are 3 or 4. Now, to be fair, the health director was overwhelmed with, what had come down, right? And he was working on getting clarification. The fact that our governor threw a 21-day moratorium on the Supreme Court's opinion is ridiculous and further monkeyed up the machinery.
No, I don't think the governor had anything to do with the 21-day moratorium. I think,
She said it.
well, she repeated it, but traditionally, Supreme Court orders have a 21-day window. The Supreme Court never indicated pro or con on that topic.
Yeah.
People were speculating in both directions on it. As far as I'm okay, we have a changing situation. We adapt to it and we make decisions.
Yep.
You can't plan for every eventuality. I think that
Absolutely.
we now have to deal with it, like everyone else in the school communities and in local governments throughout Michigan. We have to await legal guidance on where it ends up. We have to look to our legislature and our governor to work together to have a coordinated plan and then be prepared to move forward. But I don't think there's any reason to finger point in the past or try to relive the past. I think we need to move forward with the best information we have.
Well,
I agree.
notwithstanding finger pointing, it's to our advantage to be able to look at the past, identify right? The need for an action plan that incorporates things that we may not have anticipated as we move forward. And that's what I'm calling for, is that, you know, any municipality out there that's handed this type of responsibility has to consider the eventuality that a lawsuit of such magnitude may fall on one side that requires them to step up and implement some type of protocol that continues, right? Whatever it was that we were doing, if we feel
The
it.
pandemic committee that you sit on, they're continuing to meet 3 times a week? Or
That is correct.
so I would guess this would be a proper topic for them to.
Absolutely, yeah. And it has been discussed, you know, to some extent, but like was said, wow, that really caught a lot of folks off guard. And then to compound that, the statement that, you know, that 21 days is enacted, the statement that she made that.
That still hasn't been cleared up. The Supreme
Yeah.
Court themselves need to clear that up, you know.
Yeah, well, exactly, but it added to the confusion of, you know, what's the next step? And of course, it was on a weekend, right? On a Friday, as a lot of the executive orders were given.
Well, it's a moot point at this time to clear up the 21-day
It is.
issue, because obviously the health department stepped up and made their own ruling, so.
Can we
And
proceed?
you know what, we're gonna have to live with it, we're gonna have to get through it. We can make recommendations here from our county, but ultimately it's gonna go back to, the state health department's gonna go back to our governor and our legislatures. That's probably where it's headed. We can have input.
Well, we do have input with our own Sanilac County Health Department.
Sure.
And Director Brian Wilkie has been managing that and putting together, I'm sure, plans to move forward in case he identifies issues here within this area or region that others are not. One of the major concerns was when it's left to a small region, such as at a county level, because you're surrounded by multiple counties, so all may have different ideas about how to handle it, how difficult it is to have a cohesive effort at mitigating, right, something of this magnitude like a pandemic. And that state level works relatively well because you do expand the borders of a cohesive effort to mitigate that. Whereas if it was just every county did their own thing, you've got a lot of people crossing county borders, and that could be a difficulty. So he has worked on that to his credit, and we're prepared in that sense.
Let's move forward. Let's move forward.
That's what I said.
Yep.
You just looked at me. Okay, any
Let's move forward.
unfinished business? We don't have any that I'm aware of. Under new business, FA 110-20, approval of 2020 current claims.
The Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby awards the bid to Procom Incorporated of Mount Pleasant, Michigan, at a cost not to exceed $13,800.
Wrong motion, Gary.
Oh, I was 2 pages ahead, wasn't I? Sorry. I had them all marked. Sorry about that.
Okay.
The Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the payment of current claims for 2002 identified and the accounts payable report dated September 29, 2020 for the general bank account in the amount of $201,342.70.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Hebring, supported by Commissioner Dean. Any comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carried. FA 111-20, budget adoption amendments, appropriations, and transfers.
The Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the following amendments and establishes the following accounts and further adopts the following 2020-21 budgets and listed below on
Support.
page 3 and 4.
Motion by Commissioner Hebring, supported by Commissioner Dean. Any questions? Comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Okay, motion carried.
Is that in support or you have a second?
So one non-support.
We have to do roll call though, since
Yeah, the remote policy does indicate roll call votes for all votes. Yeah. So maybe from this point forward, maybe.
Okay. FA 112-20, award bid to purchase vehicle equipment, Sheriff's Office.
The Sunlight County Board of Commissioners hereby awards the bid to Procom Incorporated of Mount Pleasant, Michigan at the cost not to exceed $13,893.50 with funding from the Sheriff's Office Vehicle Equipment Line.
And support?
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Heberlin, supported by Commissioner Dean. Any discussion? A roll call vote.
Everything will be rolled.
Everything's okay. Okay, Commissioner Dean,
Yes.
Commissioner Heveland,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Meara,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Chairman Coleman.
Yes, motion carried. FA 113-20, approval of the 2021 county child care budget.
The Sunlight County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the County Child Care Budget Summary, DHS 2091, with the Department of Health and Human Services for the 2021 in the amount of $925,253.43 as presented, and further authorizes the board chairman sign the necessary document.
Do you have a support?
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Hebron, support by Commissioner Dean. Any discussion? Do we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Heveland,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Meara,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Dean,
Yes.
Chairman Coleman.
Yes, motion carries. FA 114-20, approval of school intervention officer services.
The Sunlight County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the contract between the Sunlight County and Brenda Cutler School Intervention Officer Service effective October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021.
Have a support?
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Hebron, supported by Commissioner Dean. Any discussion? Have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner O'Meara,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Dean,
Yes.
Commissioner Heveland,
Yes.
Chairman Coleman.
Yes, motion carried. NFA, I had a
Yeah, you're right.
NFA 027-20, authorization to purchase vehicle, Sheriff's Office.
The Sunlight County Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the Sheriff's Office to purchase one 2020 Ford F-150 from Signature Ford at the cost not to exceed $31,711 with funding from transfer from the Sunlight County Road Commission to the Police Vehicle Fund.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Heveling, support by Commissioner Dean. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
You go, Gary.
In our last meeting, we discussed this, excuse me, and we changed the minutes of how that was read. Is that the way this was changed in the minutes? Do you remember?
I'm looking at the minutes here from, that was from the full board,
Yeah,
not the FA.
that was in our last meeting. We changed it because there was some
FA.
questions about
It's not in the FA.
the funding was actually coming from
Oh, man.
the police vehicle fund, and somehow it looked like it was tied into the funding was coming from the Sunlight County Road Commission, which it was not, I believe. You remember that conversation?
It's September 15th. That would have been September 15th was our
Yeah.
last FA meeting, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at new business and it's got purchase vehicle equipment, approval childcare budget, intervention officer, and nothing for the vehicle.
This is an NFA, which indicates it was an add-on item. So
Well, it would still be in the minutes, but it's not.
My only question, and I,
didn't go
Not
to the
after it was changed. It was changed. The wording was changed, if I remember right.
yeah, and I think this is how it was changed because,
Your police vehicle equipment's up top. You've already approved that. I believe this was just an add-on. This is an add-on to purchase the vehicle
an add-on to today's
Well,
meeting? Yeah.
originally,
Talked about it
No.
from somewhere though.
No. We discussed this at length.
Yes, we
And,
did.
and I don't want to make a big deal out of it because I think it's exactly how the wording was changed because it led us to believe the funding was coming from the road commission. And I think someone at that point in time, I'm not sure who it was, corrected it and said the funding was coming out of the
I
sheriff.
wasn't at that meeting.
no,
Yeah.
what it was, we was gonna take it right out of the road commission fund.
Mhm.
Road commission said that they could not do that, or they didn't want to do that. They wanted the
Funds.
county to pay for it, and then they would reimburse the county.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
'Cause-
To be heard, Butch to be heard.
Get the sheriff on the phone here.
Sheriff, go ahead.
This is Brad on behalf of the sheriff. It's purely just a pass-through motion. The road commission has already paid for the truck. We have the check in hand
Yeah.
and the truck in hand. We just simply need it to be put in the county's name instead of the road commission's.
Yeah, and I believe that's exactly what we talked about, Brad. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Dean,
Yes.
Commissioner Heberlein,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Meara,
Yes.
Chairman Conley.
Yes, motion carried. NFA 028-20, schedule a public hearing, community development block grant.
The Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby schedules a public hearing on November 3rd, 2020 at 1 p.m. for the purpose of receiving comments from the Community Development Block Grant and authorize the board's secretary to publish in the newspaper record.
Motion made by Commissioner Heberlein, supported by Commissioner Dean. Any discussion?
Yeah, what's this black grant for?
Yeah, this community development block grant, these are funds that were earmarked for Sanilac County. And we did issue a letter that we were interested in these funds. And the thought is that we would partner with our local health agencies, the health department, and try to offer some type of telemedicine. There's just shy of $100,000. That's really as far as we've gotten with the funds. We've met with our specialist probably about a month ago. And part of the process is, of course, to hold that public hearing so we can discuss this grant in more detail if there's community members who have expressed an interest. So this is part of, these types of funds always have a lot of strings attached to them, and part of it is going through the public hearing, so that we can obtain the funds. We still don't know if our project's been approved yet, but we wanted to get this scheduled, obviously, since it takes a little bit of time to advertise.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Dean,
Yes.
Commissioner Heberlein,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Meara,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Chairman Conley.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, any public comments? We don't have a closed session. We need that all important.
I move to adjourn.
Motion made by Commissioner Healy, supported by Commissioner Dean. That we adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Roll call
I
vote.
guess we need a roll call vote even for that.
Yeah, both of them.
Chairman Heberlein,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Meara,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Dean, Chairman Conley.
Yes.